How's it going, folks? It's Lobo and welcome back to the channel. And right off the bat, I'm just going to kind of address the elephant in the room. And to those of you who are waiting for this reaction to drop last week, that's my bad. I really don't have any excuse as to why I waited this long. I guess you could say it's because I didn't know last Friday was actually New Year's. At the time, I initially wanted to release this, but again, I just really think it's me just slumping back into the spirit of the holidays and just lounging about and being lazy. So again, I'm sorry for that. And if my New Year's resolution was to have a more sort of consistent upload schedule, I've already failed at that because we're 1 week into January and this is going to be my second or third video. So yeah, I kind of failed at that already. But currently none of that matters because I'm officially starting my Daredevil series reaction. I'm very, very excited for this, and I've actually been really anticipating this, even though it's been sort of put on hold and I've had to catch up a bit with other shows. The bulk of my excitement really derives from what I've heard about this series, and a lot of that has to do with the maturity that it proposes. I've heard countless times that this show really does have a sort of degree of grittiness and grunge, and that's really some sort of aspects that we don't necessarily get when it comes to present day / modern comic book / superhero flicks and movies and shows. So that underlying theme and tone, it gets me very excited, not only for the series, but for the future of the MCU in retrospect, because you have to think about what can producers, what can Kevin Feige and all the head executives over at Marvel learn from this series and apply it to what we have nowadays when it comes to the MCU and its future, because we've seen in Spider-Man No Way Home a pickup in maturity. So I really am excited to see where it can go and where this can take off. I'm not going to give any specific details, but obviously Spider-Man No Way Home, if you haven't seen, this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but it did present itself a level of maturity and grit that we have not seen in any prior Tom Holland Spider-Man films, and for the most part, a bulk of the MCU movies have lacked that sort of complexity. I also want to talk a bit about the character before we begin, and we're going to get into sort of spoiler talk / discussion here. If you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, please see it. For the love of God, it is such a good movie, and it's an absolute must-watch. I understand if you live in different parts of the world that it may not be out in your area, but just please try to avoid any spoilers so you can experience it for yourself. But right now, I'm just going off the basis that you are with me and you have seen it. So right here, again, spoiler talk for Spider-Man No Way Home. Okay, I'm just kind of giving dramatic pause so that people can leave. But anyway, Charlie Cox's Daredevil was in Spider-Man No Way Home, as everyone is suggesting. The rumors, the leaks, and the sort of theorizing was all correct. Whatever one you want to coin it to, give the credit to, they were all right. And seeing him there was very cool for me, but obviously, since I have not seen this series yet, I didn't have the same range of emotions that others who did experienced in the theaters, because my theater personally, if you didn't know, I went first showing in my area, like the very first showing in IMAX, and when he came on the screen, Daredevils let themselves know who were in the house, and it was a very loud sort of gasp and clap, and so I'm like, okay, people are hyped about this, so I want to get in on that train. And of course, when I saw him, I knew who it was. I wasn't just like, who's this guy? I'm aware of the character, not only of Daredevil, but of this show before I saw Spider-Man No Way Home. I've known about the series for a long time, but it's really become relevant now, not only because of No Way Home, but sort of this fusion of Daredevil, the show, mixed into the MCU. And that's sort of the nature of what I want to discuss right now before we begin. And the crux of what I'm wondering is the sort of how canon is this series, because I don't know how sort of extravagant this is, because we sort of play on the idea in the MCU of if it qualifies as an Avengers level threat, then you see some cameos, some interactions. Is it really just so self-contained that it proposes the idea that all this happened without essentially the Avengers knowing this occurred? Or it was just handled by Daredevil so splendidly that there was no need for interference? Obviously, from not seeing the show, I'm making all these assumptions, but I can only wonder how they're going to either be sort of nitpicky where they're like, okay, this part's canon, this happened in the timeline of the MCU, or this never happened. I'm just wondering how they're going to proceed and address that situation. From recent interviews I've seen of Vincent D'Onofrio, he said it is the same version of Kingpin in Hawkeye that it was in Daredevil, so obviously you have that basis of continuity. But I saw a lot of Daredevil fans also wondering and saying things were different, and one notable change is Apparently, Hawkeye Kingpin is a lot stronger than Daredevil Kingpin. That's what I've heard. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's a good change. Wilson Fisk in the comics and sort of any adaptation you have of Spider-Man when it comes to animation is just, I've said this time and again, he's a powerhouse. He's a beast. So it was so cool to see him in live action as this force to be reckoned with, this crime lord, the kingpin of crime, taking cars, flying through a building, and tossing people 20 feet and shit. So that was awesome from that perspective. But then a lot of people were saying there was a downside to that he lost to Kate, or he did a lot of things where he wouldn't necessarily do in the Netflix show. Pretty much what Daredevil fans, or sort of the response I was seeing on various social media platforms when it came to the review / spoiler talk of Vincent D'Onofrio's latest portrayal of the character, was that if it was the Netflix version, it would have been a lot darker. So that only makes me believe certain things, like, okay, with that being said, I'm thinking that this is going to happen. So I really think, again, that this is heavily going to lean into that more mature aspect, and I expect a level of sort of rawness when it comes to violence, and I'm very excited for that. So contrary to belief, whether or not you've seen my channel, pretty much I really do enjoy these more mature things, because I know the large portion of my channel, like 90%, comprises of films and shows that have a huge level of lightheartedness and humor. So to see we take a step back and fix on a more darker tone, I'm so excited for it. But again, from my standpoint, I somewhat appreciate that more than that lightheartedness, which is, again, just, it's hard to digest because you haven't really had a display of me watching this more mature things, other than like older films, like the X-Men films, which again, I will get back to reacting to. I apologize for that. And I guess you could say the Conjuring movies, or those Conjuring-verse movies, sure. But once more, it's been pretty much comprised of Marvel, and obviously they have their formula when it comes to comedy and lightheartedness, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's nice to sort of really attack and stick with the theme. So damn excited for that. So lastly, I'm going to give a sort of basic rundown on what I know about the character personally, what I picked up through the years of being a Marvel and comic fan, and seeing just sort of any adaptation or connection to Daredevil, and processing that and instilling it into my knowledge. So here we go. Pretty much, I know there are a lot of comparisons drawn between him and Batman, and it's funny because Daredevil fans are saying no, and then Batman fans are saying no, and obviously you can tell I'm a Batman fan. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times people will see something Batman, they go, oh, that's so Daredevil-like. And then us Batman fans are like, no, Daredevil's so Batman-like. So it's just funny to see that. But I know he's on the darker side and has that sort of red, visceral sort of theme and grand emotion. And so it's really cool to see all these little details and aspects take fold. And I'm just very excited for it from that standpoint. I've seen pictures of the costume from the comics. I won't lie, I have seen little like snippets of his costume in this series, but I haven't focused and like really like looked at it enough to process what it looks like. Obviously, since I said I know what the comic design looks like, again, it's somewhat Batman-like, where it's cut off, where you can see his lower half of his face, but then he has horns rather than bat ears, and it's all red minus no cape. And I think he uses possibly kind of like what Nightwing uses. Damn it. I'm having a complete mental sort of, I can't think. It's like a staff, but in half, so it's like two parts. You know, I never claimed to be a weapons expert, so I believe you could give me a pass on that for not knowing what the two stick things are called. Those aren't nunchucks, no. See what I mean? But I know I don't know. I just said I didn't. I think he uses those. And one thing I'm not too sure on is his sort of power set. I know he has a degree of heightened senses, but I don't know if that entails superhuman strength. I think it just has to do more with reflex, because he has a technical disadvantage or disability that his other senses have had to compensate for that loss. So I really think it just has to do with senses, not necessarily strength. But in Spider-Man No Way Home, the brick scene when he caught it and shit, I was like, oh, damn. Not only was that a cool reflex, it looked faster than Peter's Spidey sense. I won't even lie. I'm like, holy shit. I guess it could make sense from that standpoint, because he really leans into reflex and sort of sensory, versus Peter, who has just this abundance of powers and abilities. And obviously his Spidey sense is a formidable tool, but I feel like Daredevil leaned into that aspect and that criteria a lot more. But the fact that he caught a brick, I'm like, doesn't that hurt his hand too? So I'm wondering, I wouldn't say that qualifies for superhuman strength, but it must be very bearable in that regard. I did know he was a lawyer before Spider-Man No Way Home, because there was, obviously, I reference this a lot when it comes to Marvel or Spider-Man or Daredevil or Hawkeye, and that's the Insomniac Spider-Man PS4 game, because it is just so damn good. So there was the card for Matt Murdock if Peter ever needed a lawyer, and obviously he was a lawyer in Spider-Man No Way Home. But not only that, it's hard for me to really remember, but I'm pretty sure back in the day when I watched Spider-Man the Animated Series, or like a rewatch when I was a kid, Daredevil made an appearance in there, and he was also a lawyer. And I've also seen the Ben Affleck movie like once. Okay? Just once. And that was a long time ago. So I don't have fresh knowledge on that. And I know a lot of people criticize the hell out of that movie. So I'm not coining that as the almighty holy grail of Daredevil. So just bear with me on that. You know, I don't know where the series is going to pick up. I don't know if it's going to be an origin for his powers. Because I think... well, remembering from the Ben Affleck one, I think he got like acid in his face when he was a kid or something. I don't know if that's comic accurate or they changed it up for the sake of the movie. But again, I don't know where we're going to pick up when this series starts. Is it going to be just diving into it or an origin tale, as I mentioned? So very interested from that standpoint. And without further ado, I've talked enough and I'm just so excited to get this started. For those of you who are watching right now in this moment, at the time I'm recording this, I don't know when this video is going to be up. I want it to be up on a Saturday, but if it's up on a Sunday, whatever day it's up on, whatever day you're watching this on for the first day of release, next week is going to be episode 2 on the same exact day that this video is released, because I'm going to do one per week. So if this is up on a Saturday, then Daredevil every Saturday on my channel. If this video is up on a Sunday, then every Sunday we're going to have a Daredevil video. That's just how it's going to work. I'm just giving you the basic rundown of when you can expect episode 2, because I'm going to start 2 more series as well. So I'm really getting into this sort of routine and working out a schedule for my channel. So again, 1 per week. Whatever day you see this on, just check next week. That is when episode 2 will be out. Quite the mouthful. Anyway, I'm so ready for this. I need to get a water, but you won't see that. So let's get started. Just 2 more quick things before we begin. If you didn't notice, I have Daredevil on my shirt, but looking at that, trying to tell you guys, I noticed that I have a blob, or I did, well, I got most of it off. A blob of toothpaste was on my shirt, so that's lovely. And then the final thing is, right now, at the time I'm recording this, where I live outside, it is currently a snowstorm. So I hope I don't lose power, but you gotta do what you gotta do. You can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. I don't really know how that works in this context, but we'll just go with it. Rated TVMA. Awesome. Manny, don't move. Don't move, okay? Oh, is that young Matt?
Oh, it burns. I can't see. I can't see.
My dad, he used to come to this church back when I was a kid. He was a fighter. Old school boxer. But he could take a punch. Jesus, he could take a punch.
Language?
Sorry, Father. My grandmother, she was the real Catholic. She used to say, be careful of the Murdoch boys. They got the devil in them.
That was cool.
But you understand it now? Perhaps this will be easier if you tell me what you've done.
I'm not seeking penance for what I've done, Father. I'm asking forgiveness for what I'm about to do.
Hawkeye kind of paralleled that line when he asked Natasha for forgiveness.
Scream all you want. Come on, let me hear you scream. Scream loud. Nobody gives a shit.
Oh, that is definitely an early years suit. Holy shit, he's fast. Holy shit, bro! He's so acrobatic, it's crazy. I didn't think he'd be this elusive. Damn. Yo! Damn, man. This is so visceral and personal. I love it. They even have an intro? Blind Justice. Holy shit, this is so cool. The usage of red, it almost looks like blood dripping. It does have such a degree of raw and grit. Oh, God, man. I love this so far. Just aesthetically. The Red Devil. It's got some cool visuals. But he's very fast and acrobatic. It's a lot like Spider-Man dodging.
Do you have somebody in bed with you? The paralegal. Is it the pair over at... Never mind. What was she like?
Violent.
These are for Bess.
Please stop giving my mom cigars, Foggy.
What? She'll outlive us all. Look.
You can flip a coin with your partner for it.
He can have the view.
I'm so sorry. I didn't
Of course not. Susan, would you mind walking me around the space?
Of course. My pleasure.
I get the feeling he can see better than he leads people to believe.
Hell's Kitchen's on the rebound, Mr. Nelson, and in 18 months, you won't be able to rent a broom closet at this price point.
Defend the innocent.
And I believe the innocent includes everyone not yet convicted of a crime. You know, as the law
He
states.
tends to use fancy terminology.
And my partner.
Oh my God, bro.
I didn't do this!
Get on the ground!
I didn't do this!
I'm sorry if I'm getting excited in such like a dark scene. It's because I'm excited it's a dark scene.
I didn't do this!
Man, I'm so loving the damn maturity in this. Oh.
Thank you, Detective. We sit down.
She gave a big shrug. I say we go with it.
You liar.
It's just my lucky day.
I bribed the desk sergeant with a box of cigars for his mom.
Our practice is relatively young, Miss Page, and we are aggressively pursuing new clientele.
How long have you been practicing law?
12:22 a.m.
About 7 hours.
There you go.
If you were to hire us, then yes, you would be our first client.
Technically, yeah.
Telling you we met at the bar, we had a few drinks, and I don't know what happened after that.
It wasn't me.
You can hear her heart.
Please, you have to believe me.
I believe you, Miss Page.
It's steady. Steady heartbeat means they're not lying. That's cool. Man, his senses are really up there. Even more so than I believed.
Hey, Dad, what's up?
Hi, baby. I'm just checking in.
If we're being honest with each other, Mr. Farnham, I find his methods unpleasant.
What do you want me to do?
Evidence, you just laid it out yourself. This is a good arrest, Foggy. We should already be reading about it in the papers. There's something not right about this case. I can feel it.
You don't necessarily show the best judgment when beautiful women are involved.
How would I even know if she's a beautiful woman?
I don't know. It's kind of spooky, actually.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying.
Thank you.
But I need you to back me anyway.
I don't disagree.
She may not be guilty, Matt. But that doesn't mean Miss Page is telling the truth.
Jesus. That kind of scared me. Oh my God, bro. Somebody wants her dead. Oh my God, it's that guy. No, Jesus, man. This is so brutal.
Get the ADA and hit a release, Miss Page, and we'll recommend to our charming, media-friendly client that she not plaster the airwaves with how she was nearly killed in your custody.
For the assault.
Yeah, we'd like to speak to Mr. Farnham about that, as well as what...
Get in line. You'll be arraigned in the morning.
Get my client released. Don't make me ask again.
You take that tone with me again? I don't care if you're blind. I'll kick the shit out of you.
Yeah, what a dick. I love Matt's resolve and confidence. Oh man, it's so good.
Miss Page, our immediate priority is to keep you safe. And in order to do that, we're going to need to have a frank discussion. Do you know why they're trying to kill you?
Yes. I was emailed a file called Pension Master. Must have been meant for my boss, but I made the mistake of opening it. I couldn't believe the numbers. But it was still being designated as company pension.
Money laundering.
And really, I can't put you out of your bedroom. I'll be just fine on the couch.
Big windows. It's got a cool place.
Upside is, nobody wanted it, and I got a corner apartment at a hell of a discount.
To see.
Yes, I remember. It doesn't change the fact that I'd give anything to see the sky one more time. And I find out one of my secretaries has discovered my illicit activity. Why don't I kill you?
They tried.
Yeah, the second time, in the jail. The first time, they're not trying to kill you. They're trying to discredit you. As if you have something that they want.
She's getting nervous.
Did you keep the file, Karen? Ah, well, it's just a thought.
Well, he knows the truth. And she lied about being broke, technically. He's like a Witcher in that sense, where you just listen for the heartbeat. That's so cool.
Some mudak in a black mask.
And you bought that? Can we review the latest numbers?
Tell me more about this man.
Took Barrett and our guys out while they were loading the container.
Different. My employer will be displeased or being inconvenienced by a lone vigilante.
Then he should tell me to my face.
You don't want that. Is she trying to leave? Ever so vigilant. You're gonna get jumped. Oh, it's a USB file. I don't know why I thought it'd be like paperwork in a legit file folder. And there it is. Oh, that's just that's just decor on the wall. I thought that was her blood dripping on the wall. But it's like an M. Behind you. Ooh, shit, he landed it! God damn. I love the intensity in these fights. It's so realistic and dark.
Like your old man. I never studied. Look where it got me. Come on, Maddie. Get to work.
Man, dude. This might sound weird, but the usage of blood and that red theme is just so cool visually. That was sick.
What the hell?
I'll get this into the right hands.
Can't trust anyone.
Then we tell everyone.
Mr. Farnham's bail has been arranged for through the usual channels. Leland's to cover our exposure on the financial too short.
Rance was a professional. How was he subdued?
I'm looking into it.
Her lawyers, Nelson and Murdoch.
Ambulance chasers. They're clean.
Start a file. They may be of use.
Job's easy when your client's innocent. All you did was tell the truth.
No, but you listened. Maybe I could clean the place up a bit.
Is this place messy?
Our firm is very prestigious and discerning, Miss Page.
But I'll work for free.
Yeah, you're hired.
You just got hired.
It's really a starter up sign. Damn, they got to him. I mean, he failed to kill Karen. Their eyes scorched? Holy shit, man. I'm not even gonna lie. Oh shit, is there an end credit scene? Or is this the second one? What is... Oh shit, this is episode 2. Oh damn. Man, they really just skipped the credits there. I was like, is this an end credit scene? Nope, it just started rolling into episode 2, so we'll save that. Just before I really get into my post-reaction discussion, again, leaning on this really fresh thoughts, one thing that is truly standing out to me is, I know I've said it previously, but that maturity and that level of grittiness, because it does present itself in a way where you feel the intensity. You're really enthralled by the entire premise of not just the episode, but the scenes, the moments. It feels so intense and personal that I'm really captivated, and I just feel absorbed by what I'm watching, because you don't necessarily know what's gonna happen. You don't have that anticipation because it's so much darker, and it opens the possibilities in the doorway to these sort of cataclysmic type of scenarios with death and murder and all this gore and assassination and such. And that level of darkness is just, it's so amazing to see when you ground it in the way of a superhero, and one that has not only his flaws but his own gifts from his flaws, and seeing him sort of struggle and then balance it. And it's just, well, I'll really dive into it later, but just some fresh thoughts. I'm just really astounded by this, and it's amazing. I'm really impressed by this first episode. Alright, now doing this a bit more officially, one thing I really admired was the way they handled his origin, because prior to watching this, as I mentioned, I was not only wondering about his origins, but how they would incorporate them or touch upon them, if this was a series made in mind with people knowing Daredevil or setting it up in a way for people to understand him. But I thought they handled it in a way that was able to touch upon his origins, where you were able to witness it, but it didn't necessarily drag on too long, where it detracted from present day and what's going on within the criteria of the episode. So I felt like the mixture of both flashback and origin, then incorporating it with his, not only his mannerisms in certain scenes where it's a parallel to how he was first learning, and his sensory and all those sort of callbacks to his father and stuff. I really love how they both went hand in hand, and both progressed the episode and sort of recollected or reminisced back in his past. So that blend and that relationship between the two, past and future, I thought worked incredible in this, and I really love how they approach that sort of idea in general of using flashback with a subtlety of origin, and again, just really realizing it in the moment in particular scenes where he's just thinking back. So I loved how they did that. So this sort of discussion is going to be different from my other ones because right now I'm just giving you the basic pros that I really liked about this first episode versus future episodes. My reaction at the end will mainly be about plot rather than I like his outfit or whatever. So that's pretty much what this first episode post-reaction discussion will be about. But going off of that, something that just really caught my eye, I mentioned this before, was the use of blood. Not only does it really add to those vibes you get with red, visceral, raw, the sort of rage, the primal rage, and that grit and maturity, but it also gives a level of intensity and realism because obviously humans bleed, and when you see blood, it triggers things within you, the sense of danger and uncertainty and that fear, and really having the use of blood where it's, I believe this, it's TVMA, so it's a mature thing, but not just in the way it's felt. It is a mature show. It's meant for that target audience. So incorporating blood and gore really makes you feel like there are stakes being made and anything at any given moment can happen. As I mentioned, one thing I don't want to say this in a negative way, but I don't know how best to say it, quite honestly. When I watch MCU films, I always have the feeling, minus certain big bads in Avengers, but when it's a solo movie, pretty much any solo hero movie, you always get the sense that the hero's going to win because you can predict the outcome because it's PG-13, it's confined to a sort of family-friendly formula and following within a certain pattern of hero triumphs over evil, good guy saves the day. But when you add a new age bracket and then you have this whole new realm of possibility to explore with that darker themes and sort of moral ambiguity and such, and then seeing it here makes me really feel that sort of sense again. It reminds me of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I know they differ, but it's the same idea where when I watched that film, I had no idea what was going to happen next, who was going to die, if something crazy was going to happen, because it's allowed because they have that rated R setting. So having that sort of translated here in a show and having all these possibilities, I'm just like, wow, this is crazy because I can't anticipate. And it's really having me on the edge of my seat, digesting the scene and analyzing everything that's going to happen, the emotion of the characters and such. So I really admire their ability to really take full advantage of what they have to work with. And just something more on the sort of cinematography or visuals or whatnot. It's shot in, I believe, New York because Hell's Kitchen is in New York. I forgot to mention this, but I knew Daredevil sort of circulates around Hell's Kitchen, that district of New York or Manhattan. Again, if you've ever seen any of my reaction videos when it comes to New York, I'm like, yeah, I'm not certain with like the islands and Staten Island, but pretty much I know Manhattan is like the crown king of New York City or whatnot. But the way the camera panned not just in motion, but like color palette and grading, it very much differs from what we've seen in MCU and MCU shows. I mean, that would be understandable, but it's cool to see because it does elicit different emotion when you see things in a different light. So I love that they're trying to really add to the vibe that they want to go for, and it does bring about those emotions. And as I mentioned, that intensity in every scene that you feel, or at least I personally feel. So that is something that really pleases me to know that this is going to be present in the show going forward. And I'm just so excited to see sort of not only the visuals, but how they can incorporate and fuel how episodes and certain scenes are going to turn out. So it's I'm just, man, I really love it. And this one might be a little bit weird, but my biggest not takeaway, but the one thing I truly respect the hell out of this is the pacing. And again, it's so hard because you kind of have to compare this to the MCU because you're on the basis of Marvel, and now that this is within technically the MCU, in some sense, there obviously has to be some sort of comparison. But I know I hate to do this, and I don't mean to bring about this so much. With these Disney Plus shows, their core values are essentially the same as the movies, where it's a heavy focus on the relationship between comedy and action. I know those go hand in hand, and it's essentially the essence of a hero story, a superhero story. I'm not debating that. But I feel like the shows really push the focus of giving you a visual representation that is grand in the scheme of things, where you're really encompassed by what you're watching, whether it's just a splendid scene of action and explosion, or it's these amazing set pieces where it's sort of alien or godlike in a sense, because obviously we have this fabrication of science in the MCU and sort of not religion but magic and things that would fall along those lines, like in sort of WandaVision, the casting of the spells, Loki with time variants and stuff, Falcon and the Winter Soldier with these grand fights in the sky. I just think back to the scene at the confession booth where Matt Murdock was talking about his father and stuff, but technically it would qualify as a one-shot, but he had a very continuous, long sort of dialogue that was uninterrupted by cuts or breaks, and you could really see the emotion in his face and Charlie Cox's acting capability. So having it like that, where it's very slowed and personal, and you really give room for the story itself to breathe, I'm like, I love it. This episode had like very minimal action, and I wouldn't say surprisingly, but that's something I really appreciated, and I didn't mind at all. I really was intrigued not only by the story, but the way they were pacing it. It was so fleshed out, and you could, as I mentioned, really giving space for character growth and exploration of these stories and feeling the emotions of characters. That also has to do with how they shot this, the cinematography, and then the acting is really good too. So all those aspects go hand in hand, and they create a very, very entertaining watch, and I am like thoroughly sucked into this sort of Daredevil in all its glory, and I really can't wait for the second episode. And just thinking about Daredevil, as I said, I had some prior knowledge to him. I remember he gave Spider-Man a card, going off the game, but I'm trying to remember it because when his friend Foggy, when I heard his name was Nelson, and it was Nelson and Murdoch, I'm like, that sounds very familiar. Obviously, if it's a play into the comics, it would make sense, but I feel like his card, when he gave it to Spider-Man, also said Nelson. So I'm wondering, because I feel like that would be heavy into his origin. I don't know necessarily if their fathers were like friends and stuff, if there's any history there, but obviously there's a mention on friendship, and then his father was, well, Matt's father was a boxer, and then saying, study, try to do better than me. I didn't go to college or whatnot. So I'm just wondering a bit about their parents' relationship, but then their relationship. I get the sense that they're close friends. Obviously, they said they're starting out. I'm like, damn, this is like the real origin of lawyers. It kind of reminds me a bit of like early days of like Better Call Saul and stuff. But that's pretty much like the only lawyer-based show I've ever watched. And even their humor and banter and sort of their relationship was very, not just friendly, because obviously they're friends, but from an audience standpoint, I'm able to enjoy it because they have their very human moments where, again, they're having those comedic elements, but it doesn't feel necessarily forced. It feels very genuine and very real. So it's just all of those little things I appreciate so much. I can't say it enough. I'm really loving how everything is folding into one and just blown out through this episode. It has all the elements that I want to see in a show when it comes to, again, camera visuals, pacing, writing, story, acting, camera show. It's just, I can't stress that enough. I'm really blown away by this. And even with Karen, her character, I was surprised by. When I saw her a bit more, I got the sense they were sort of setting her up for being part of the pack, so to speak. So I'm just wondering if she has any like comic relevance, because it appears now she's going to be, I want to say like receptionist, but obviously she appears to be now working with them in some manner. So And I feel like there is some, I wouldn't say like chemistry or tension, but there is a little something between her and Nat. It's like a fondness. I wouldn't try to predict what it's going to become, but that's just going off the first episode. So I'm wondering if they're really setting her up for more storytelling in that way, or if she was just going to be like a one and done character, which I highly doubt. But seeing her and then obviously Foggy and Matt and seeing all their relationships, it's very grounded, very real, but it's very personal, as I mentioned, because all the camera shots have this intensity where it's very close and you can really experience the characters, but limiting the sort of side and main characters to having your core focus or centralizing on here are the good guys, it's a very small batch, and then you can really have those connections and growth because it's not sort of this grand cast where it's like, oh my god, I love them, I love them, I love them. No, it's what I'm appearing from the first episode, or what I'm looking at is that it's essentially just the three of them. I don't know if that's gonna evolve or change, but for now, I really like how condensed that is and how familiar it is, because it has that family feel where it's smaller, but that makes it more potent in a sense. And now pretty much the last thing I want to go over is some surprises I had when it came to Matt Murdock's character and Daredevil. The amount of comparisons I draw on Insomniac's damn game. Well, it's kind of their fault for making a game so good, so perfect. But when he was dodging, when he was fighting and doing all these flips and all this fight choreography and the acrobatics, it really reminded me of Spider-Man's dodging. It was so efficient, yet fast and fluid and elegant and such. I'm like, damn. I was really surprised by that because I never knew how Daredevil fought, but just looking at the character, obviously we have the iconic muscular physique and stuff, but I thought he would be more of a heavy hitter brawler rather than sort of agile and quick and very precise and ninja-like. So I'm like, that's actually works perfectly, and it makes sense. So I really like that, and I can't wait to see how that evolves. Excuse me, because getting the sense that this is the first episode. Obviously, I know earlier seasons of any show, the budget is sort of decreased, and then they want to see how it progresses, how much the audience likes it, and then they're like, okay, we can work with a higher budget. So seeing the evolution of not only how he fights because he's becoming more experienced, but also the budget is going to increase. I'm just excited to see the evolution of his fighting, his techniques and stuff, and I'm really excited. I know there are memes where they say Deadpool's like king of the hallway. I don't know what that means yet, but they say he has some hallway fights that are really good, so I can't wait to see them. And then it's not just his fighting. It also has to do with his, well, you could say reflexes, but it's his hearing. I was always under the impression that he could see kind of like a dog. I don't know why I'm saying that. I think it has to do with Ben Affleck, if I remember right. But there was some Daredevil clip I saw. It was not Charlie Cox. It had to have been Ben Affleck, where he was seeing, like, quite literally in red. Like, everything was red. It was a bit blurry. It was a bit darker, but it was red. But he could still, like, visually see. But in here, it really just had to do with hearing. Like, very, very good hearing. Like, good enough to hear someone's heartbeat and all these sounds miles away. I was like, damn, that's not what I thought. It's very cool. As I mentioned, it's very Witcher-like. Where it's those heightened senses. Obviously, it's overcompensation for his loss of vision. But when you see him reflect upon it, it becomes emotional, because he said what I wouldn't give to see the sky one more time. I'm like, that's such a beautiful and tragic thought to think about, and I love that sort of interaction that he has. There's also little details I noticed. I've heard this one before where they said Charlie Cox, I saw it in his eyes, where people have said that he doesn't make eye contact with people to really sell, like, his eyes don't work, where he's just not looking. He'll talk to someone like I'm doing now. I'm trying to give you a representation of that. But I was like, that's very cool, and I appreciate how much he's really giving into the role and trying to make it very realistic from that standpoint. For those he's with in particular scenes, I was wondering if they were ever going to question how he can move so well without his walking stick. I know it was his apartment when he was with Karen, but I was just like, damn, he really obviously he knows his way around his house, but he did it very good. But the details I noticed was the small little here and there, he'll touch something to get sort of a mental map of the room or the layout of the area he's working with. So it's those little details that add to everything that I really enjoy and like, and it, again, adds into that degree of realism and how authentic it is to real life. So having a blend of comic elements with this fantastical sort of street level grandeur of crime and corruption and heightened sensory with a actual disability in real life, and having those two worlds collide to make a show which has heavy themes of maturity and grittiness, and seeing that all come to light, it's honestly it's so cool to watch. So man, I'm very excited for the next episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. To those of you who've watched till now, I appreciate it. You must be a massive Daredevil fan, so this goes without saying, and you guys are really good at it, and I thank you for it, but I would appreciate no spoilers for sort of future episodes. But if you have something that you would like to say about this episode in particular, if I missed anything, because obviously I was going over more so things I liked rather than plot necessarily, but when it comes to future episodes, that's going to change, because this was the first episode. This was the start of my series reaction. So if you want to talk a bit about the plot, or you want to give me a little, not necessarily a tidbit, or just a little, hey, this is what this is. Oh, this is a reference there. I would appreciate that, and I'd love to see you guys' comments. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments, as I mentioned. And yeah, I'm so excited to start the next episode. Again, whatever day you see this on, it will be coming out a week from today. So hope you guys are excited for that. And of course, as I mentioned, I'm going to be starting a new series as well and get back to my X-Men reaction. So a lot to look forward to on my channel if you are interested in my content. So again, I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch my video. And I'm just so excited for the next episode. I'm really debating if I can work out 2 episodes per week, because there are 39 episodes in total, and each of them are approximately an hour. So it felt like a long hour due to the pacing, and I love that. I love slow burns because I just really love to digest and the dialogue and the storytelling and the character growth. So, man, this is hitting my checklist in every way. So yeah, I'll have to figure that and ponder that on my own. But as I mentioned, hope you guys enjoyed, and until then, I will catch you folks in the next video.